2004 through 2008 Acura TSX with the 2.4 liter engine. We're going to be changing out the valve cover gasket. I'm Brian Esser from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of doing that. So the high pressure power steering hose goes right across the top of the valve cover, so we need to remove it. So what I do is took out the two bolts, and then I'm going to show you a tip. What I do is I take a glove and I pull the line off and I put the glove over the line. That prevents the fluid from running around everywhere. You can zip tie the glove onto the line and hold it. Once you got the line unbolted and the glove on it, then you can just push it off to the side, and no other fluid will leak out of it. It's a pretty cool little trick. Next, after that, there's two covers. We're going to remove the front cover here, and there's just a couple 10mm bolts holding it on, or nuts, and you unbolt that. Now you can set this aside. Then the rear cover that's actually going over the valve cover, you can remove the 4 fasteners holding it down. Also, there'll be one fastener for the power steering hose that's clamped onto the valve cover. You want to remove that, then you can finish pushing it off the side. After you got the cover removed, you can go ahead and unbolt the coils. So there's going to be 4 bolts holding the coils down. You want to make sure you remember which bolt goes to which. There's 2 of them that hold the cover on that have a little studs on them, so you want to remember where they go. So after you get the coils unbolted, you can pull them upwards and then squeeze the tabs and unplug them and set these coils aside. Once you get the coils unplugged, there's a metal vacuum tube that goes across the back of the valve cover here. We need to unbolt it. It's held on with 2 10mm fasteners. So I just removed the 2 bolts, and it's part of the brake booster vacuum hose that goes to the intake. So after you get them removed, you just pull the vacuum hose back like this. Now you can take the wire loom here and flip it off and push it in towards the firewall. Then we're going to take the vent line here for the PCV system here off the valve covers. Just squeeze the tab, pull the hose clamp back. And then what I do after you get the hose clamp pulled back is just give the hose a little twist like this. That breaks it free, and you can pull it off like this and set it aside. I just tuck it out of my way. Now you want to pull the dipstick out and set that aside since it goes through the center. Now you can unbolt the fasteners holding the valve cover down. There's 4 in the front. These are all going to be acorn nuts. So there's 4 in the front, 1 in the center of the cover, and then there's going to be 2 more in the back of the valve cover here. So once you get all the fasteners removed, then what we're going to do is you're going to tuck the wiring harness out of your way. You're going to push it towards the back of the firewall. Make sure your power steering hose and everything is out of the way. Once that's all tucked off to the side and pushed backwards, then what we're going to do is we're going to take a little flat blade screwdriver, and we need to pick off the rubber grommets that the bolts went through. So right here will be a little rubber grommet with a metal cap on it. We need to use our screwdriver and pry that up and pull these little rubber grommets and caps off and set these all aside. The new valve cover comes with all brand new hardware, so you don't have to worry about damaging them. So you can just pick them out like this. So there should be 7 of them in total, so go ahead and pick all these out. Now with all the grommets picked for free, you can take the flat blade screwdriver and go at the bottom of the valve cover and give it a little twist here, and that'll pop the cover up and get it free. You may have to do this on both sides, left and right side of the valve cover. So once you get it popped free like this, now you can start working the cover out of the vehicle. So you want to lift straight up as vertical as you can and lift it out. Now that the cover's out, I'm going to clean up the cylinder head here. I'm using a rag and some parts cleaner, and sprayed it onto the rag and use it to wipe the oil off the cylinder head surface where the cover mounted. So I'm going to clean all the way around and clean this all up. So the cleaner you get this, the more successful your seal will be when you go to put your new cover on. So you want to wipe all the way around. You want to be careful not to knock the debris and dirt into the engine. So if there's a lot of it there, you want to push it away from the engine. So now I'm going to prep the valve cover. The first thing I'm going to do is flip it over and take the oil cap off. That way when we lay it down, it lays flat. So when we lay it on our bench, it's flat like that and it doesn't rock back and forth. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the old valve cover gasket out of the valve cover. So I'm just using a flat blade screwdriver and pick it out. And we're just going to pick this out and throw this away. Once we got the gasket removed, the next step is to remove the tube seals. So the way I get them out is I use a small flat blade screwdriver and I put it right on the edge of the cover and the end of the seal here, and I'll tap it in with a hammer straight down vertical. And then once it's in there like that, then I just give it a little pry like this, and that'll pop the seal out. So I'll do that for all 4 seals and remove them. Before we go back together, I wanted to share with you the part numbers for the valve cover. I'm using a Felpro gasket. It comes with everything you need to do the job, all the seals, even for the ignition coils and everything. So I had already went and washed the valve cover in my parts washer, and now I'm gonna get ready to go back together. So I'm gonna open up the package here, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take out the seals for the coils. The ignition coils seal to the top of the valve cover, so they come with these little grommets. So I just used a little screwdriver to pick the grommet out of the ignition coil here. So you just pull the seal back, and once you get it peeled back, then you can slide the seal off. And then you're going to match up the seal with your new seals from the kit. And it has this little beveled edge that fits inside the coil, so you want that facing upwards as you slide it on. And then you press them into the coil. Now that's ready to go. So you'll do that for all 4 coils. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the oil seals. So we're going to take the new tube seals here and put them in the valve cover. Make sure that they're faced the correct way. You press them in until you get them started a little bit. Then I used a seal driver like this, and I used it to lightly tap it in until it's fully seated into the cover. You do that for all 4 of the seals. If you don't have a seal driver, a large 1/2-inch drive socket with an extension on it works pretty well. Just make sure it's the same diameter as the seal and hammer it in. Now you can take your new gasket and press it into the valve covers. And after that, the only thing that will be left will be the rubber grommets that go onto the fasteners. So we're going to take the valve cover gasket here, and this, I like to just unfold it and then kind of figure out how it goes and then press it into the cover. What I like to do is find a corner and start in a corner, and I'll start pressing the gasket into the corner and working the gasket around the cover. So once I get the gasket fully seated, what I do next is I take the whole valve cover itself and flip it over, and I lay it flat on my workbench here and I press it down, and that helps seat the gasket into the cover. Now the cover is ready to go back on. Before we go, I wanted to show you how to clean out the tube seals if yours were leaking. So a lot of times these seals will leak, and the spark plugs will fill up with oil, and you need to clean that out before you reassemble this. So the way I do that is I take a little bit of a brake clean, and I'll spray it down the tube, and basically I'll fill that tube up with brake clean, and then I'll use a shop rag and some compressed air, and I'll put the compressed air down the tube like this with my little nozzle. And as I blast the air into the tube, it goes up inside the rag and catches it. After that, I remove the spark plug. Then I use a rag and a screwdriver and push it down there and clean out the tube. Now that the tube's cleaned out, we're going to go ahead and go back together. I use a little bit of Right Stuff black silicone in the corners right here on the cam lobes. I'll put a small little dollop on each one of those cam lobes. Then I'll make sure that all my wiring harness and everything is out of the way, and I'll put the valve cover back on. So I'll line it up straight over and let it drop straight down. And you just want to work slow and make sure that nothing gets tucked underneath or pinched between the valve cover and the cylinder head. So you work slowly and let it drop down. Once you get it dropped down, basically you're going to line up the tube seals and give it a push until it fully seats down. Once the valve cover is seated down, what I do next is I take a mirror, and I use a flashlight and a mirror, and I go around the whole perimeter of the valve cover, making sure that the gasket did not fall off, and also make sure that nothing is pinched between the valve cover and the cylinder head, such as a vacuum line or a wire of some sort. Now I'm going to take the new rubber grommets with the metal caps on them, and I'm going to push them onto the little studs. So there's going to be 7 of these in total, so you're going to press on all the bushings with the caps, and once you get them all pressed on, you can go ahead and start the nuts. So once you get all 7 of the rubber grommets and the nuts started, then what you do is you can run these down. I'm using my little Milwaukee Tools new stubby impact here. It's brand new. It has some power settings, so I set it on the lowest setting. And what I'm going to do is run these fasteners down starting on the middle and working inside out. So I'll start in the middle and work on one bolt and go across and do the other bolt and go back across and do the next bolt and work back and forth and to draw the cover down equally. And like I said, I got it on the lowest power setting, so it's not torquing it down in any way. It's just running it down until it's snug. Now that the cover is pretty much cinched down, I switch over to a hand ratchet. I use 1/4-inch ratchets, and I'll run these fasteners down until they're completely snug, and then I'll go about a 1/4 turn more. I'll do this all by feel, and then I'll cross over to the other side, and I'll run the next fastener down until it's completely snug. And then once it's completely snug, I'll do it about a 1/4 turn more, and I'll keep repeating this pattern back and forth until all 7 of the fasteners are secure. And then once I do that, then I'll go back over it, and I'll do it again a second at a time A lot of times as you tighten up one bolt on the one side and go across the other side will seat a little different, and the torque setting will change a little bit. So I do this all by feel, and I'll keep going back over the fasteners until they all feel consistently about the same tightness. Once the cover is cinched down, then I take the wire loom here and flip it back into position. So I'll line it back up. Then I'll take all 4 coils and put them back in the cover. And once I got all the coils plugged into the cover, then I'll plug them all in first before I bolt them up. So I'll leave them hovering about 1/4 inch or so, and then I'll plug the connectors in. It's a little easier with them hovering a little bit. And once they're all plugged in, all 4 of them, then I push them down until they're fully seated. And then I'll start all 4 of the bolts and then tighten the coils up. So when you install the coil bolts, the long one with the stud on it goes to the coil on the last coil, number 4, which is the furthest one on the driver's side. And then there will be a blank bolt or a short bolt that goes in the middle coil. And then the long bolt goes into coil number 2, and then the short bolt goes into coil number 1. The studs on a couple of these bolts are what lines up the top engine cover. So once you get them all started, you can go ahead and run these down until they're snug. Once you have all 4 of the coils run down until they're snug, they don't have to be super tight. The next step after that, we're going to take the power steering hose in the back there. Then you can flip it back into position, take off the glove, and then start it into the power steering pump here. And start the 2 fasteners, and then also the fastener that holds the hose onto the back of the valve cover there. Now you can go ahead and run the fasteners down until they're snug. So you're going to do the main power steering line, and then the bracket in the back there held the hose secure to the valve cover. After that, you can make sure the fluid is topped off with Honda approved power steering fluid. Reinstall the dipstick for the engine. Now you can reinstall the rear cover so that it just lays over the top of the coils. You'll line it up, and then you'll put the fasteners on and run them down until they're snug. After you get the rear cover on, you can put the front cover on. So you just line it up, and then you can start the 2 fasteners and tighten these all down. So they don't have to be super tight. Just run them down until they're snug. The 2 in the front and then the 4 in the back. So there's going to be 4 for the rear cover. Once you get all these all secure, then they're going to start the 2 bolts that held the metal vacuum line that goes to the brake booster hose here that went on the side of the cover. So you'll line those 10mm bolts up on the side, and we'll put the vent hose on here, slide the vent hose on, and put the clamp. So you'll secure all this right here on the side of the valve cover. Once again, you'll just run these fasteners in until they're snug. That's the cool thing about this new stubby impact by Milwaukee Tools. It has a variable trigger that allows me to control how much pressure. After that, you can go ahead and reinstall your oil cap. I will link up all the parts and tools that I use in this video in the description. I'm Brian Essick from How To Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos, encourage you to subscribe, invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again for watching.